Something very unusual just happened on the XRP Ledger. And it wasn't a rumour, it wasn't a glitch, and it wasn't retail hype. It was real data. The XRPL quietly processed around 2.23 billion XRP in a single day. And if you're someone who watches the charts and thinks, but the price hasn't moved, you're absolutely right. And that's what makes it so interesting. Because the plumbing underneath XRP just roared to life, while the token barely reacted. And today I want to break down exactly what that means. What's actually happening on the ledger? Who typically moves that kind of size? And how that fits into the bigger XRP story, including the staking launch and whether this could connect the broader ETF environment that's evolving around crypto. If you're new here, I'm Paula. I cover crypto, macro, and the parts of this industry most people never look at. The data you only see if you're really paying attention. So I'm here to make it simple, factual, and calm so you can think about it like the people who move millions, not like someone who's chasing whatever coin was trending this morning. So let's talk about this spike, because 2.3 billion XRP moving in a day is not something you ignore. This wasn't trading volume on an exchange. This was payments being settled directly on the XRPL, value actually being moved. According to TradingView and You Today, this wasn't just elevated activity. It was what analysts call a structural anomaly, because the ledger almost never processes this much value at once. And what's even more fascinating is that this wasn't happening in isolation. Over the past couple of weeks, we've seen multiple reports saying ledger activity is showing explosive growth, while the price of XRP itself is still in a sleepy downtrend. So the first question we need to answer: who actually moves that much value on the XRP ledger? Because I can tell you now, it's not retail. Retail does not coordinate a multi-billion XRP settlement day. When we see flows this large, they almost always come from either exchanges rebalancing liquidity across different regions, custodians shifting inventory, market makers repositioning, or institutional payment pipelines running large batches. XRPL isn't just a token, it's infrastructure. It's used for FX routing, cross-border movement of liquidity, arbitrage, and settlement. This is exactly the kind of network where you see large bursts of activity whenever something big is happening behind the scenes. There are a few realistic possibilities here. One is the boring one: exchange housekeeping. When venues restructure how they manage wallets or move funds into different operational zones, the ledger can see very sudden spikes. But there's another possibility that's more exciting from a utility perspective. XRP has quietly been making regulatory progress internationally, including new licensing wins in places like Singapore, and whenever new corridors, partners, or payment rails are tested at scale, you tend to see unusual bursts of volume like this. This could be the first large-scale test of a new corridor. It could be a client going from a pilot mode into production. It could be liquidity rebalance across regions for institutional FX flows. Then, of course, there's the scenario I'm watching closely. Historically, the biggest XRPL payment spikes often appear around major volatility moments or near the exhaustion of a trend. It doesn't tell you direction, but it does tell you that something in the system just changed. But you're probably thinking, if all this activity is happening, why doesn't the chart reflect it? And that's fair, because the chart on its own still looks pretty uninspired. XRP is still inside a descending channel. The 50, 100 and 200 EMAs are stacked above the price, a classic bearish formation. The last bounce attempt got sold into. It hasn't reclaimed the midline of the channel, and analysts covering this spike all repeated the same idea. On-chain strength is interesting, but price still needs to prove it matters. And that's the honest way to view it. Ledger activity by itself isn't a buy signal, it's a context signal. It tells you the environment around the asset might be shifting. And when you zoom out, you can see that the XRP environment actually is shifting. For example, XRP is finally entering the staking world. Today, December the 3rd, Flare is launching XRP staking. something analysts have been calling the start of a new era for XRP holders. And whether you stake or not, this matters, because staking changes how long-term capital treats an asset. It opens up yield, it reduces liquid supply, and it brings XRP deeper into cross-chain ecosystems. It's not hype, it's infrastructure. Ledger growth is climbing, staking is launching, and then there's the ETF landscape. And this is where you need clear information, because there's a lot of noise online. So let's clear it up. There is no BlackRock XRP ETF filing right now. In fact, BlackRock has said publicly that they aren't planning an XRP ETF at the moment because the US regulatory environment just isn't built for it yet. Someone even submitted a fake BlackRock XRP filing to try and manipulate the market, and it pumped XRP about 12% before being exposed. That case is now being investigated. CoinShares also withdrew their own US XRP ETF filing recently as they focus on other strategies. But what is important? XRP is starting to appear inside multi-asset blue-chip crypto ETFs, like the upcoming Truth Social Crypto Fund, where XRP has a small allocation. On top of that, huge platforms like Vanguard have reversed their anti-crypto stance and now allow customers to buy crypto ETFs, including funds that indirectly hold XRP through their brokerage. So while the headline XRP ETF soon isn't true, the reality is more interesting. Institutional access to XRP exposure is expanding slowly in the background, and that absolutely ties into why big ledger flows matter. Right, before I go any further, there's something really important to mention here, because when we talk about institutional flows, staking, ETF exposure, and big spikes in on-chain activity, the question of custody becomes massive. You do not want to be the person holding everything on an exchange if something breaks when the market moves. This is why I personally use Tangem for cold storage. Tangem has an app on your phone, and instead of a seed phrase, you have a Tangem card or ring. Your private key is generated inside that card or ring, and it never leaves it. Anytime you want to sign a transaction, you just tap the card or ring against your phone. It's one of the simplest, safest ways to keep your XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever you hold, off exchanges and fully in your control. And right now, Tangem is running a Black Friday deal until the 5th of December. You get 20% off plus $10 in Bitcoin. And if you add my code Paula, you'll get an additional 10% off. It's genuinely a great time to pick up a hardware wallet if you've been putting it off. Now let's get back to the spike, because this is where everything ties together. When ledger activity rises, when new staking options appear, when corridors expand, when ETFs and institutional access evolves, and when cold storage solutions become more widely adopted, these are all signs of an asset moving from retail speculation to global infrastructure. It doesn't mean the prices move today, but it does mean that when the price does move, it usually isn't random. So here's how I'm personally approaching it. I'm watching to see if this wasn't a one-day anomaly. Do we see more elevated ledger days? Does the chart start to confirm anything? A breakout, higher lows, EMAs flattening? Do we see any corridor announcements that would explain these flows? And on the ETF side, do more multi-asset funds start including XRP as a standard component? If these pieces begin lining up, that spike won't look like noise. It will look like the first sign of a bigger shift. Let me know in the comments, what do you think this 2.2 billion XRP day really was? Exchange moves? Institutional corridors? Early positioning for a new cycle? And if you're tired of feeling like you're researching this stuff alone, that's exactly why we created the Crypto Wolfpack. It's a community where normal people can discuss charts, macro trends, on-chain activity, and have a safe place to learn without feeling overwhelmed. And if you want to know the exact strategies we use to make money in both the bull market and the bear market, we've made a completely free course. The link is in the description. If you've enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, drop a comment for the algorithm, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.